Hello everyone, it's Dylan from Yugioh Everything, and welcome back to another Yugioh VRains episode review. This time we will be reviewing episode 29, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use clips from all my previous reviews and kind of do a recap review of what is another recap episode. I was very optimistic, and I guess I should apologize for that because I was probably one of the leading voices in saying that, maybe it won't be a recap or maybe it'll be 50-50, which I was very hopeful that it would be, and it was about 95.5 recap to real stuff, new stuff that we got. Really, you only have to watch the first probably 20 seconds up until the opening and the last 60 seconds to get all the new info you need to get about this episode. So 3 of the last 16 episodes, if you want to cherry pick, have been recaps, which is insane. I talked to one of my friends over the weekend. I went to lunch with him. I went to Panera, and he's a big Dragon Ball super fan, so he was showing me one of the last fights that happened, and he asked me how VRains was going, and I said I've really enjoyed it. It's really been good so far. I think the story has really been good, and I like the characters. But the only thing is there's kind of this dark cloud over it because 29, which is the episode coming up, seems like it's going to be a recap episode, and my friend Rob was like, "Oh, that sucks. Recaps are awful." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, this will be the 3rd recap episode." And then the face he gave me was one of the most priceless faces I've ever seen. And he says the same thing that you can say, that everyone can say about it. And he's like, "Well, that just is a huge sign that there are production behind the scenes issues, or that they have no idea where the show is going." And I really don't think it's the latter. I think the writers have a good understanding of where they want the show to go. I don't think they're buying time because they don't know what to do with the story. I think the story is actually, when you take out the recap episodes, even with the recap episodes, I should say, the story has flown really, really well, and it seems like almost every duel has been important so far. So I don't think it's that. I really do think there's just some kind of animation, budget, production issues. I really don't know what it is, but it really is a shame that this is happening to the show, and that, we did have the director apologize, and a lot of people are saying, why did the director even apologize? The director's exact words was that a recap won't happen for a while. And, the story will progress for a while, but a while to him could have meant 2 months. I mean, 2 months is a while depending on what you're talking about. If you say, yeah, I'm not going to be able to walk for a while, I hurt my hamstring, 2 months is a while. So his definition of a while could just be 2 months, whereas our definition was maybe 40 weeks or 40 episodes or something like that, because that's the precedent that's been set by Yu-Gi-Ohs in the past. So I'm not really blaming the director too much on it. I mean, I'm sure there definitely will be people that do, at least for his wording and for his apology. It could even just be something that's out of his hands, and maybe he wanted to keep going with it, and the higher up said, look, you only have this amount of money or these amount of animators because of sick days, vacations, or just unexpected things. You have to make it work. And he's like, all right, well, I don't want to progress with a half-ass episode going into the plot, so I guess we're just going to have to, unfortunately, do another recap, which is a shame. We just don't know what the reasoning is. I'm sure it has to be production, but this will be the first episode where I am saying don't bother watching it. I mean, with 13 and 21, I said 21 at least had the intro that I still feel was really, really awesome, with the whole Revolver most likely buying from Kusanagi's hot dog truck and the Stardust reference. But this episode didn't really have anything. It just didn't. And it had some cool foreshadowing, and the last 60 seconds was very interesting. Actually, the name of what Revolver says at the end is a real-life game, which is a game that I have actually played before. So I immediately knew exactly what he was referencing, and that is really, really awesome. And I'll get to that towards the end of the review. But basically, this episode recap, I should say, was just focusing on the Knights of Hanoi. It wasn't focusing on Yusaku versus Emma or Yusaku versus Akira. It was really focusing on the Knights of Hanoi. And Kusanagi, I actually thought was pretty interesting in this episode. Not only some of the foreshadowing things that he said, and the most interesting foreshadowing that he gave was probably what we all want to see, and that's the team aspect of Aoi, Go, and Yusaku. And he literally says, but there's other people that I think will help us fight the Knights of Hanoi, and that's when we go into the duels against the 3 commanders. And he says, thanks to these 3, the other victims were saved. And we all want to see this team aspect. We've wanted to see this team aspect for a while. And this hint right here, this foreshadowing, I think was really cool, because I do think we are going to get the team aspect of Blue Angel, of Go, of Yusaku, and whoever else it may be. in the future. So fighting the Knights of Hanoi, he literally says it straight up. I think we have people who will help us fight the Knights of Hanoi. So that was awesome. Another really cool overall aspect of this episode, and of course, I'm talking about the pros. I could go on and on and on about the cons. I'm not saying this was an enjoyable episode. I hope you guys aren't going to say, oh my god, you just like every... I really don't. I mean, then again, I'm definitely not as bothered by this as some people will be. But, you know, I already said I don't recommend watching it because nothing happened. But I'm not going to dwell on the negative. You know, there's so much negativity. And if you want real hardcore negativity, just like go to 4chan or something. My channel's not really about that. But anyway, moving on. The whole episode was kind of ominous, right? If you really take a step back and look at it. Kusanagi is writing like a final email as if he's going to be killed almost, as if he's going to disappear, and maybe that is dark foreshadowing that he is going to disappear and that something horrible is going to happen to him. And I think it was very interesting at the very end of when he's writing his email, he says, if anyone sees this email, please give this to my brother, or please tell my brother Jin. And we do learn his name in this episode, Jin. That was probably, if you didn't watch any of my summary videos, or the one I think that came out on Monday where we got his name over the weekend, that was probably a really cool reveal for you guys. And yes, Kusanagi's brother is named Jin, which, you know, I like the name. We still don't know where his brother is. His brother closed off his heart to the world. He's in this dark room. But that's all we know. I wish Kusanagi said a little more, but maybe Kusanagi truly doesn't know what happened to him. Maybe he lost contact with him like 7 years ago, and he's trying to reach out to anyone that knows where his brother is. But it just, the way he wrote that email and the way he worded it almost seemed like he doesn't expect to live. It was like, if anyone sees this, please give this to my brother. That's like an SOS final message in a bottle that you send out to sea when you're like about to die on an island. Like, that was a very, very dark message. And right after that, we hear a knock at the door, and we see Kusanagi is visibly, like, shaken, and he's like, who is it? Like, I shouldn't say he was nervous, that's probably how I just sounded, but he clearly was on edge. And it was Yusaku, and he was like, oh, good, it's just you. Like, Kusanagi is this is taking a toll on him. And it's taking a toll on him maybe more than we as a viewer knew about it beforehand, because I always thought Kusanagi was kind of calm and collected. And Yusaku comes in, and again, Yusaku seems like someone who never gets bothered by anything, but he's like, I can't sleep, I have a feeling that something horrible is about to happen. And Kusanagi is like, yeah, it really does feel like the calm before the storm. And both of these two are like, and based on the preview for episode 30, and what we know about 30 and 31, which, yes, I've read the summaries, and I will give my thoughts on them in a video tomorrow. The calm before the storm seems to definitely be happening, just based off that 30 preview alone. So I am still very, very excited for those episodes. But this episode, when you take a step back and look at it for all the new content we got, it just really had a very ominous kind of end of days feeling, and I think that's where we're approaching in the show. So I did like that aspect, and you know, I want to like Kusanagi a little more. I do like Kusanagi. I think he's a great wingman, but I want to see him get involved a little more. And now that he really is kind of the narrator, and now we know a little more about him and his brother. I shouldn't say that. We really don't know much more. We only know his name, and we saw the picture. That'll probably be the thumbnail. We don't really know too much about him, but that's what I'm saying. I want to know more about him, and there's definitely going to be there's definitely going to be room to learn more about Kusanagi's character. I was hoping we were going to get some backstory. Based on the summary we got for this episode too, it seemed like we were going to learn about how Yusaku and Kusanagi crossed paths, how we were going to get backstory for that, but of course we got no backstory regarding that. And basically they're like, Revolver's been quiet too long. When he shows up, it's going to be the end of days. And then we see Revolver in that same room, and he says the Tower of Hanoi is complete or has begun. I'm going to bet everything on this game. The Tower of Hanoi, ladies and gentlemen, what I hinted at in the beginning of the review, is a real game. And this is what it is. So basically, you have the biggest circle is on the bottom, followed by a bunch of smaller circles, and you can only move one circle at a time, and you have to move the circles, again, one at a time. You cannot place a bigger circle on top of a smaller circle, and you have to do it so that you stack up the tower and complete the tower on a different pole. So you cannot use the same post, obviously, that it begins on. You basically have to move all of the pieces to a new tower without stacking any of the bigger pieces on the smaller pieces. And that's how the Tower of Hanoi puzzle game works. And of course, you can have like the four circles. Geez, I can't speak. Or you can have like up to 8 circles, I think. Or actually, I think the minimum is 3. I'm pretty sure the minimum is 3. And it's actually an app on like an iPhone that I've seen advertised before. And I've played the game online before because it's a puzzle mathematical game, makes you think, and it's really cool. Now, what could this have to do with the actual Knights of Inoue? Is it going to be a game similar to this? Probably not. Maybe it has to do with something, how like the bigger pieces can't be crushed by the smaller pieces. I don't know. VRains is all like into this mathematical realism thing, so it could be a case where maybe this is like an actual game that you have to play. I don't know. It's a cool real life reference. I'm sure it's going to be completely different than this in the actual, you know, realistic Yu-Gi-Oh! VRains world, but we'll see. I thought that was kind of a cool reference and ode to a real thing, and, you know, Tower of Hanoi, it's an actual game, and Revolver literally calls it a game, and he says he'll bet everything on this game, and we know that humanity is in trouble based on the preview, and just based on what Revolver said, and Kogami said, that humanity is running out of time, basically. So I'm very excited still for 30 and 31. Yes, I wish they just took a week off, because if they took weeks off instead of doing recaps, we'd only be at episode 28. Like, or next week would be episode 28 instead of episode 30 if they did one recap. And if they didn't do a recap in 21, I probably wouldn't have minded this as much, because it's hyping up the Knight of Inoue Yusaku match, or the Knight of Inoue versus Team Yusaku fight, which was cool. But again, we just got a recap 8 episodes ago, and yeah, it's a shame that we got another one, but you know what? I'm already looking past it. I've already forgotten about it, and I'll talk to you guys down below, of course, but I'm excited for 30. Just focus on 30. Guys, that's that's all I'm going to be doing, and no use in dwelling on it, and we'll just keep our fingers crossed and hope that we do not get another recap episode in the future, and I'd like to think that they will figure it out, that they will get their feet on the ground. Eventually, there's only so many recap episodes you can do before production is caught up, or maybe you have the right budget, or maybe the animators, you've hired a couple more animators, and the show can progress without recaps every 8 episodes, because it is a shame. And while it doesn't bother me, I know it does bother a few people out there. So hopefully, I shouldn't say it doesn't bother me. It does bother me, but it doesn't bother me anywhere near a point where I'm going to consider dropping the show. And it actually works out in a way, because I have a few friends at school and at home that were on the fence about watching VRains, and they feel like 29 episodes is overwhelming. I can literally tell them, just watch episodes 13, 21, and 29, and you literally can watch 29 episodes in 3, which is probably the only good use about this many recap episodes, that you can catch up friends on the show, and that's what I'm probably going to try to do. So, you know, always just trying to look at it from a positive point of view, but definitely disappointing that this was such a heavy recap episode. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my review. I only say this when we get recap episodes, but I hope you actually enjoyed my review a little more than you enjoyed the episode, because if you didn't, then I probably did something wrong. Thank you guys so much for watching. I thank you for your constant support, and I hope you have an amazing day.
「喧嘩し合いながら」